It's more impressive to have a title defense against someone moving up a weight class than someone in their own weight class 99% of the time. And that is because there are things called divisional skill gaps, which not enough people talk about. People are catching on to it, but I think a lot of people still really need to understand this. There's this idea out there, and it's some Stone Age archaic idea, and it comes from the correct idea that, a size advantage matters in a fight, which it absolutely does to a certain extent. But when we're talking about weight classes that are 10 pounds apart, I actually don't think it makes that big of a difference. And in most cases, when people move up a weight class, they have shown superior skills over the people in a heavier weight class. Look at Khamzat Chimaev. Let's talk about his last couple performances where he didn't get the first round finish. Gilbert Burns, Kamaru Usman. What did they have in common? They are welterweights. First middleweight he ever actually fights in Robert Whittaker, and he gets him out of there in the first 5 minutes. That's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. Who's the guy that gave Justin Gaethje the toughest fight in regards to Gaethje's ability to create chaos? I know Justin Gaethje's known for creating these chaotic moments, and he's never really someone that's just shut down completely, unless we're talking about the grappling. Max Holloway. It took a featherweight to move up to lightweight to make Gaethje look silly on the feet. People have knocked out Justin Gaethje. People have beat him, but they've never made him look easy. And they've never just kind of, restrained him and just kind of turned Rufus into a guy that didn't know what he was doing. Okay? And let's talk about heavyweight. If you guys were watching the UFC this past weekend, how do you think Kennedy Nzechukwu, I know he was fighting Chris Barnett, but how do you think Kennedy Nzechukwu would look against most light heavyweights? Definitely not as good as he looked against Chris Barnett. Most heavyweights are like Chris Barnett, and I actually think Kennedy Nzechukwu would give Ciryl Gane an absolute fit. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that defending your belt against fighters in your own weight class is just, it's not hard at all. I mean, you always got to defend against someone in the lighter weight class. That's not what I'm saying, but what I am saying is let's get rid of this idea that Islam Makhachev, if he fights Ilia Topuria, he's got to stop fighting these small featherweights, man. Small featherweights. I understand they're a little bit shorter, they're a little bit smaller, but let's not pretend that they are worse or easier fights at all, okay? Alexander Volkanovski, if you put him in the cage when he fought Islam Makhachev for the first time with any other lightweight, he beats the fuck out of them, okay? Max Holloway, you put him in the cage with a lightweight instead of Ilia Topuria the other day, 99% of those lightweights, he's beating the shit out of them. All right? Arman Tsarukyan may be the one guy to give Islam Makhachev fits. Outside of that, everyone at lightweight is easy money for him. Easy money. Easy money. But again, people just have this idea that, he's fighting featherweights. And I understand it. It gets a little bit annoying when you have like a line of guys in your division that have been working hard. They've been working their way through the rankings, and you want to give them their title shot. And if you're denying them a title shot to give to someone in another division, it can be a little bit annoying. I understand that. But let's not act like, first off, these guys that move up weight classes haven't put in work on their own. There's this idea that when Khamzat Chimaev moved up, and I half agreed with it, but there was this idea that Khamzat Chimaev's moving up, he shouldn't be anywhere near a title shot. He shouldn't be anywhere near someone that's even ranked because he hasn't done shit at middleweight. He could have had 10 fucking welterweight fights and people would have been saying that. You're getting fights in the UFC. If you're fighting ranked people in the division below, I understand you shouldn't just, automatically easily get a title shot, but like, that counts. Those are fights. People act like you move up a weight class and you're back to ground zero. You haven't done dog shit. Bullshit. Absolute BS. Okay? It's freaking nonsense. All right? And, we're going to talk about guys, you're going to take title shots away from people at lightweight. There's one guy. There's literally one person at lightweight that deserves a title shot, and that's Arman Tsarukyan. No one else is deserving. This is not like, the late 2010s or the mid 2010s where, the lightweight was murderer's row and you had Habib, you had Tony, you had RDA, you had all these guys. There's one dude, and it's Arman Tsarukyan. I want to see him get a title shot. Diego Lopez is deserving of a title shot. I want to see Diego fight Ilia Topuria. We can wait, bro. We can wait for the biggest fight in UFC history. Okay? For the biggest fight in UFC history since Conor McGregor and Khabib. But there's this, nope, you got to do the boring shit. Fuck that, man. I'm fucking done with that. Okay? This one's too good to pass up on. Bro, he's just going to defend against featherweights. Okay, featherweights are fucking great. Like, they're tough fights. Some people just don't want him to defend against featherweights. I honestly don't get it. Dude. Okay, wait, hold on. So wait. Arman Tsarukyan's more deserving of a lightweight title fight because I understand he worked his way up at lightweight. But like, Ilia Topuria just beat Volkanovski and he beat Max Holloway. He beat Bryce Mitchell. He beat Josh Emmett. He's on a crazy win streak. I mean, you could argue that Arman's lost more recently than him. It's just a title fight. Let's just fucking make it happen. Arman could be next in line. Divisional skill gaps are real. They are 100% real. Anthony Smith would be a monster fighting people outside of the rankings at heavyweight. But at light heavyweight outside of the rankings, it's getting tough. John Jones moves up to heavyweight, and he is once again showing a tremendous skill gap. The people that were around John Jones's build, around his size, as his title reign progressed at light heavyweight, things started getting closer with guys like Thiago Santos. Things started getting closer with guys like Dominic Reyes, who myself and a lot of others thought that Dominic Reyes actually beat John Jones. John Jones fights Cyril Gane, someone his size at heavyweight, and fucking destroys him. Alex Pereira moves up to heavyweight, and he's literally knocking Gane out in one round. So, listen, I'm not saying that we got to see Brandon Moreno fight Ilia Topuria, or we got to see Makhachev move up to fight Dricus du Plessis, but I'll tell you this much. Welterweights are better than middleweights. Middleweights are better than light heavyweights. This is just how it is. So, yes, I actually think that for Makhachev to defend his belt against Ilia Topuria, or for Belal Muhammad to defend his belt against Islam Makhachev is like an amazing win. People still look at this like, oh no, they're beating up, these little guys. They're acting as if like I'm asking for someone to jump up 3 weight classes. That's not the case. And again, this whole deserving thing, and dude, the guy moving up that I want to see fight is usually a champion. So we're talking about deserving. They've actually won titles. They've defended their belts. So what? We want to see him move up a weight class for one fight. Nope. You can't move weight classes because there's this rule that we made up. Fuck that. There's this rule that we made up. I fucking hate these stupid formalities in MMA that MMA fans just have to stick with. The world is going to explode. The volcanoes are going to erupt if we don't stick to what we normally do. And the reason why I'm so passionate about this, specifically the Ilia Topuria and Islam Makhachev fight, is because it really does remind me of Conor and Khabib, but this time Conor's way more competitive. Because Ilia Topuria has the grappling that Conor didn't have. And, now people are still kind of coping. They're talking about Holloway was yo-yoing between divisions, and that's why he got KO'd. Dude, it's Max Holloway. Even if that's a guy whose chin may have suffered just a tiny bit because he was moving down divisions, he's still Max Holloway. That's the best chin in the UFC. Okay, it gets nerfed a little bit. It's still one of the best chins in the UFC, even if it's nerfed. So we got to see this fight. The buildup would be insane. And yeah, Islam Makhachev versus Diego Lopez in Spain, Arman Tsarukyan versus Islam Makhachev in Vegas, that would be great. But the problem with doing those next is that you just know. And I don't blame Islam if he does this, but you just know that he's going to move up to welterweight. You just know it. Who's going to be the champion at welterweight at the time? Either Belal Muhammad or Shavkat Rakhmonov. Islam would have broken the record for title defenses. You just know he's going to move up. We're never going to get that fight. And then instead, we're going to get a Mickey Mouse title fight between Ilia Topuria at lightweight, because no one's beating him at featherweight, versus whoever's going to get the belt after Islam Makhachev cleans out the division. And they're just not going to feel like a real champion. And yeah, the buildup will be all right, but it's not going to be the same. The dynamic between Makhachev and Ilia is one of the best dynamics you could possibly have in a buildup. Both guys like talking shit. They both have like the competitive only trash talk. They're not going to get personal. Makhachev is the Mr. Smirk guy, and Ilia Topuria is also a Mr. Smirk type of guy. He's always smirking around. And, he thinks he shits all over Makhachev. He thinks Makhachev's trash. And guess what? This whole idea of, I just think Makhachev just creams him. I just think dude, I watched Dustin Poirier versus Islam Makhachev again today. It was competitive. It was very competitive. I understand that some of you guys that haven't seen that fight today like I did are going to go at me and you're going to say, relax, Dustin Poirier won 30 seconds of that fight. Like, I love Makhachev, but his fans, that's like their number one line, right? If there's any competition, they'll say, relax, the opponent just won like 30 seconds of the fight, relax. No, Dustin Poirier was in there doing really well. And no, Dustin Poirier doesn't have more power than Ilia Topuria. Neither does Justin Gaethje. There's this idea that Gaethje and Poirier, they hit so much harder. No, the fuck they don't. They do not hit harder than Ilia Topuria. They don't. Not even close. It's not even close. Ilia Topuria has great offense. He doesn't have the Holloway output or the Volk output, but my goodness, man, that guy will be able to land on Islam Makhachev. And if that guy lands on you, he just knocked out Max Holloway. You cannot doubt for a second that he lands clean on Islam Makhachev. There's not a good chance he's going to KO him. There is a good chance he's going to KO him. And for Islam Makhachev, southpaw, long and rangy. He's got the kicks. The body is open on Ilia Topuria for Islam Makhachev to kick him. He could land a head kick. He's got power. He could maybe prove to be a little bit too much in the grappling. Maybe Ilia Topuria isn't as good as Volkanovski when it comes to defensive wrestling. Maybe he's just really good at jiu-jitsu, but off of his back, he can't really do much. We've seen Bryce Mitchell hold him down, so that's just an example of a time where Ilia Topuria didn't look so good on the ground. Maybe Makhachev can beat him there, but my point is, it is an amazing fight. If Makhachev beats Ilia Topuria, he's beating the guy that just knocked out Max Holloway and Volkanovski, who looks unstoppable and has all this hype, has all this aura. That would be insane, and fair enough. The risk is, he's losing to a featherweight. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, it's a tougher fight than Arman Tsarukyan. And you know what? People fucking know that. That's why I think a lot of people want him to fight Arman, because they actually know that Ilia Topuria is a tougher fight. But there's this idea that why would he risk it against a featherweight? A loss against a lightweight still sucks. He loses to Arman Tsarukyan. People are acting like if he loses to Arman, at least he's still got the belt. That's literally the fucking energy people have with this. You know, he fights Ilia Topuria, he loses everything. He fights Arman and loses, he loses nothing. He still keeps the belt. It's still a loss. A loss is a loss. Now, if you're a guy that really just wants Makhachev to never lose, and you know that Arman's just a bit of an easier fight because he's not as dangerous, I understand. On one hand, I want Islam Makhachev to become the GOAT. I just want a new GOAT at lightweight. I want a changing of the guard in our top 5 conversations on the GOAT list and all that. And I'm not even the biggest Ilia Topuria fan. That's not why I'm calling for this fight. It's not like I just want Ilia to beat everyone. I like Ilia Topuria. I think he's great for the sport. I wanted Max to beat him. I wanted Volk to beat him. And you know what? I actually wouldn't mind Makhachev knocking him out. But it's just such a good fight. You can't pass up on it. You know, like I still want to see the Diego Lopez matchup. As I said, I still want to see the Arman Tsarukyan matchups. Those are great matchups. They're not even close to this. And I don't trust the UFC to make the fight. And it's not because they're going to be incompetent. When it comes to these really big fights, I think the UFC would like to make it, but it's a timing thing. If you don't do it soon, it will never happen. That's the fight that we're never going to see, unfortunately. But I really think people need to get over this whole, like, well, he's defending against featherweights type of thing. Like, I get it. I understand it. It can be a little bit annoying. But let's not act like there's this long list of contenders at lightweight that have, 10-fight win streaks apiece, and they're all waiting for their shot. Like, that's just not what it is. That's not what it is. That's not the case. There's one person. Featherweight, there's a little bit more of a logjam. Fair enough. But Ilia Topuria has already beat Max Holloway. He's already beat Volkanovski. Yeah, I want to see him fight Diego Lopez, but you know what? If he moves up and he loses, he can go back down and fight Diego Lopez. What's the worry there? Well, now he wouldn't have as much hype in that fight. Okay, but the hype is for the biggest one you could make, 10 times bigger than the Diego Lopez fight. We need to make this fight. There is a divisional skill gap, all right? Let's just actually discuss some divisional skill gaps. Holloway moves up, he's probably going to dominate most lightweights. Volkanovski moves up, he's probably going to dominate most lightweights. This is just what happens when people move up. They have success. Look at Davidson Figueiredo. He moved up from flyweight. We actually thought, a lot of us thought that he was over the hill. Now he's on a 3-fight win streak. Okay? And who else are we going to talk about? You know, it's very rare that you have fighters move up and they don't do well. Really rare. Khamzat, as I said earlier on in this video, the first middleweight he fights that's just been a middleweight for a long time. I know Whitaker used to fight at welterweight, but Whitaker's been at middleweight for so long. He is a middleweight, and he's one of the better ones for sure, but Khamzat Chimaev got him out of there. Couldn't do it to Usman. Couldn't do it to Gilbert Burns. Okay? And then who else are we going to talk about? What other fighters? Sean Strickland, former welterweight, moved up, became a champion. Alex Pereira, former middleweight, moved up, destroying these guys. Just destroying them. Yuri Prohaska, Jamal Hill, like these are fights that we thought were going to be competitive. Not at all. They were not competitive, not in the slightest. Who was his toughest fight? Outside of Jan Blachowicz, fair enough. Jan Blachowicz, fair enough. Jan, man. Dude, I love Jan. Jan's the guy that had to fuck up my line of thinking. But either way, his toughest fights were, against Izzy. He lost to Adesanya, got knocked out. His first fight with Adesanya was a tough fight. He did well. Like, he KO'd him. He outstruck him the first time. It's not like, he was losing those fights. He lost one of them, won one of them. But Adesanya was that guy that was, in there with him, outside of Jan. Everyone else, no one's in there with him, really. I guess maybe you could say Khalil. Nah, man, we can't keep disproving my own point. You got my point, bro. You got my point. Magomed moves up, dude. Magomed's toasting people. Okay? He's toasting people. Imagine if Alexander Rakic were to move up. There wouldn't be any Parker Porters at heavyweight if Rakic's were moving up. So this is how it is. The divisional skill gaps are real, and diminishing this idea of fighting someone coming up a weight class because they're the smaller guy. Like, again, I understand you want fighters to not have a huge size advantage, but in general, it's usually the case that when people move up, they do put on a little bit of muscle. So they actually kind of grow into the weight class, and they are usually much tougher fights. So therefore, I think beating them is just as, if not always, more impressive. So let me know what you guys think. I just wanted to rant about this. Until next time.